Waiting until age 70 to take your Social Security benefits might be the single most expensive financial decision you ever make, and nobody's talking about why. Now, look, as a certified financial planner, I'm not here to tell you that delaying is always the wrong idea. It's not. For a lot of people, it makes complete and perfect sense. And yes, claiming at 62, well, that could blow up your retirement, and I've unfortunately seen that happen. But here's what I've also seen and what nobody tells you. It's the wait as long as possible to take Social Security is the only way. Well, that assumes that your Social Security benefit, it exists in isolation, and we know it doesn't. And so in this video, we're going to debunk that, especially if you're heading into retirement with more than $2 million, because at that level, the size of your Social Security check might actually be the least interesting part of this entire decision. You see, what actually matters is how that benefit interacts with your taxes, your required minimum distribution, your Medicare costs, and IRMA, and the whole financial picture. See where I'm going here? That's the layer most people never get to. They just look at it with one-track mind. And that's where we're going to unpack today. I'm going to show you what I mean. Now, let me walk you through a brief client situation. Now, I worked with a client not too long ago, solid couple, well into seven figures saved for their retirement, smart, disciplined, they've done everything right. And they came into my office committed, right? Hard fast to delaying their benefits till age 70. That's what they had been told. No one was going to change their mind. I said, you know what? I hear you, but let's just unpack this a little more. Let me show you some numbers. Let's look at what happens at age 73 when you start your required minimum distribution. And that maximized Social Security benefit, it's now stacking on top of what the IRS is already forcing you to take out. And once we started to look at the numbers, by the end of the conversation, they were looking at Social Security in a completely new way, completely different way. Now, here's the argument you've probably heard 100 times. Every year you wait past age 62, your Social Security benefit grows by roughly 6 to 8%, as you can see right here on the chart. Now, delay that all the way till 70, and you end up collecting 77% more than someone who claimed early at 62. That's not a bad strategy, but the financial media loves this number. They treat it like it's obvious, like only an impatient or fearful person would leave money on the table. Like, why would you ever permanently or intentionally reduce your benefit? And look, the math is clean when you take Social Security by itself, when you isolate it. But here's the problem, especially for folks like you that have $1.5, $2, $3, $5 million saved. Social Security, it does not exist in a vacuum. You see, that Social Security benefit is going to be stacked on top of capital gains, required minimum distribution, Medicare premiums, tax bracket, all these things that are going to happen whether you want them to happen or not. And they're all going to be triggered and impacted by the size, you guessed it, that Social Security benefit. Delaying your benefits is not automatically wrong. Please hear that. In fact, for a lot of folks, we work together to find the optimal age for them to begin their benefits, especially if you're married and you're needing to coordinate the timing of benefits and when one person retires versus the other, or like we'll get into later on in this video, coordinating survivor benefits. But blindly waiting until age 70 without looking at your full picture, huge mistake. And that's where you're going to leave a lot of money on the table. And I don't want that to happen to you. So here's what most people never see in what early claimers actually gain, and those that wait till 70 forfeit and end up giving up. So let's talk about what claiming at 62 actually unlocks. First off, you get a known fixed income floor that you can then build everything around. And again, this is all about being intentional and mapping out the next 25, 30 years of your life. Think about what that means from a planning standpoint. You now know exactly what's coming in every month, and you're not guessing. And that certainty allows you to pull less now from your IRA in your 60s because you have Social Security covering part of your spending need. And anything that's left over that you still need, you could choose to pull it from your IRA, your Roth, brokerage, cash. You are now in control. And so if you choose to pull it from your IRA, guess what that also does? It starts to chip away at your RMD that's going to be coming when you turn 73. You now have managed the problem before it arrives. And here's the piece most people miss when it comes to that. They miss the Roth conversion window. Think about what happens to someone who delays Social Security until 70, from the ages of 62 to 70. They're funding all of their spending from the IRA. And what does that do? Triggers massive taxes. Or if they have a brokerage account or a pension, they're leaving their IRA completely untouched, letting it grow and grow and grow, which means a huge RMD, massive taxes later. Either way, they're running out of room in their tax bracket and they can't do Roth conversions now. It's too late. The early claimer, they're in a completely different situation. You see, Social Security at 62, it fills up part of your tax bracket, but because of how Social Security is taxed, if that's your only income, it's taxed much more favorably. And so depending on your situation, you might now have 20, 30, maybe even $50,000 left in the 12 or 22% space to convert into a Roth IRA, which is now tax-free growth and tax-free income. So you have that arbitrage of where if you had to take it out at 73, maybe it's taxed at 22, 24, and now you're strategically converting it up to a 12% tax bracket. You just picked up a free 10%. See that tax flexibility that you could have had created in your 60s by taking Social Security early? It's gone by the time that you get to your late 70s. Now let's talk about the gap between when you retire in your early 60s and before Medicare kicks in. If you're getting insurance at this point, you're probably getting it through the Affordable Care Act, the ACA marketplace for several years. And the subsidies you qualify for are based on your modified adjusted gross income. You're playing a different game here. Now, Social Security, it counts towards it, but here's the key. We already know it's a fixed amount. And so now we have a predictable Social Security benefit. It allows us to calculate exactly how much other income that you can recognize while staying below those subsidy cliffs to qualify. So you're playing a different game here, like I said. We're figuring out, are Roth conversions important right now or qualifying for cheaper health insurance? Because what we could do on top of Social Security, we could choose to pull money from a savings account, a Roth IRA, or even cash if we need it. See, the delayer, on the other hand, they're left guessing at what their future benefit's going to be. They're planning in the dark, and you can't model with this precision. And when you can't model with precision, mistakes happen. Now, let's talk about IRMA. It's the Medicare surcharge that no one wants to talk about. Most people don't see this coming. See, IRMA, your Medicare Part B and D, those premiums are based off your income from 2 years ago. So what you earn at 63 determines what you're going to pay in your first year of Medicare at 65. And that's a window that you can actually manage and actually plan for. People miss that. Now, the early claimer, because they're drawing less from their IRA during the early 60s, they have more control over what that income is going to look like at 62, 63, and they could target specific IRMA thresholds and actually hit them. Whereas the delayer, maybe they're pulling everything out from their IRA because they don't have Social Security coming in. Guess what? That spike in income, it triggers that IRMA surcharge at 66 they never saw coming. And they're paying now more for their Medicare than you are because they were trying to maximize their Social Security benefit. Again, we have to weigh these. And it all comes down to having a plan and not leaving free money on the table or paying more than your fair share in taxes and IRMA surcharges. Have a plan. So now that you see exactly how claiming affects subsidies, IRMA, if you want help building your dream retirement as a whole, click on the link below to share your details, and I'll send you a personalized Loom video showing you how to apply this strategy to your own situation. Now, let's fast forward to age 73, because this is where the math gets ugly for that delayer. They usually didn't see it coming until it's too late. Picture this. You delayed till 70. Your Social Security benefit is now $45,000 to $55,000 a year instead of the 25 or 35 that you would have gotten if you took it at 62. That's a win. You waited for that. You wanted that. And if you're married, double it, right? But here's what also happened. Your IRA sat untouched for those 8 extra years, and it grew and grew and grew. And now the IRS says, hey, it's time to pull that money out whether you want or need it. You see, your RMDs may well be over $100,000 instead of the $60,000 they would have been if you had been strategically drawing from it. Now add that RMD and your new $50,000 Social Security check benefit that you have coming in, and you're well above $150,000 of income, more if you're married. And where's that push you? Solidly into the 24 or even higher tax bracket. Now, every dollar of that maximized Social Security check, it's pushing other income into higher territories, right? And now your Social Security benefit, it's taxed more than someone who only has Social Security. You see, you didn't optimize your retirement income. You optimized one part of your plan, but you left everything else out to dry, and you lined the pockets of the IRS with your hard-earned money. Now, let's compare this to the person who took their Social Security benefits early. They're now turning 73 just like you. Well, yes, they have a smaller Social Security benefit. Let's say maybe it's $30,000. They have 8 years of IRA withdrawals or Roth conversions that they strategically did from 62 to 70. So they've shrunk the balance. So now their RMDs are only $60,000 to $70,000 instead of 100 plus. And their total income now at 73 is only around 90. And they're an entirely different tax bracket. Lower bracket, less of their Social Security benefit is taxable, more room, more money actually stays in their pocket. And now, yes, they didn't maximize Social Security, but what they did instead is they're paying less in lifetime taxes. And more importantly, they're in complete control of their retirement income picture. Now, if I haven't convinced you yet of at least reconsidering your Social Security claiming strategy, let's look into one more scenario that I think is going to flip the math entirely in this favor. I want to talk about something that may be the most important part of this conversation, and it's survivor benefits. It's how you line up the timing of when to take your Social Security. And here's how survivor benefits work. The surviving spouse keeps the higher of the two benefits, either theirs or their deceased spouses, whichever one is higher. So if both of you delayed your benefit till age 70, the survivor now has one larger benefit instead of two medium-sized ones. That sounds like protection, but here's the trap. You just lost one whole Social Security check. The survivor spouse as well is now single. And single tax brackets are exactly half as wide as marrying filing jointly. Now you get a couple of years of qualified widow, but your big check that you waited so long for, it's taxed more. And most people miss this. You see, we'll say a Social Security benefit of $55,000 taxed at single rates. It's very different than one of $35,000 taxed at single rates. And combined with RMDs that are also elevated because the IRA was never drawn down strategically, that surviving spouse often finds themselves in the highest tax bracket of their entire life, right when they're most vulnerable and least equipped to adapt. And here's the cruel irony. Delaying doesn't just inflate your survivor benefit, it inflates your future tax exposure at the exact same time. Whereas a smaller benefit claimed at 62 means smaller survivor benefit, which sounds like a loss until you run the numbers. And you see that with that single tax filer, it's now stacked on top. So here's what a smarter tax strategy actually looks like for a lot of couples that I work with. We let the spouse with a smaller Social Security benefit go first. And what that does is it puts money in our pocket today in early retirement. And we let the spouse with the larger benefit delay all the way to 70, because here's what that does. First, you have income coming in now. You're not waiting around and draining your IRA to cover living expenses. Second, when the higher earner claims at age 70, that spouse possibly gets a top off if 50% of their full retirement age benefit is higher than their own benefit. Now, here's the part that matters most. Should the higher earner die first, that widow now steps into that benefit for life. They just got a huge raise. You didn't maximize both. You protected one early, and that's an entirely different conversation than just chasing the biggest check. And this is the conversation I have with couples all the time. Both of you optimizing for the biggest paycheck, it's not the same thing as optimizing your household's after-tax income, right? Because remember, RMDs are going to happen, capital gains are going to happen, Medicare is going to happen, and we have to have a plan that thinks about all of this. We have to have a system that's designed to give us flexibility. Now, who should actually claim benefits at 62? Well, the first camp is for retirees who want more control and flexibility over their income and taxes. People that are proactive and see the long game of paying less in overall taxes. For number two is for couples who have actually modeled what widowhood is going to look like one day. And they've seen how delaying creates survivor tax problems that they don't want to have. Number three is for anyone who has come to understand that maximizing one number while losing control of everything else, that's not optimization, it's tunnel vision. So Social Security is just one piece of the entire financial plan. And number four, only if you can afford it. You see, taxes, if we don't have a significant IRA balance, are not going to be as big of an issue of optimizing your Social Security as running out of money. See, but by having the right Social Security plan, that's way more valuable. Now, I want to be honest with you. Claiming at 62 is not the right move for everyone. There are situations where delaying absolutely makes perfect sense. In a situation where your health is excellent, you've got a good, modest-sized IRA balance, and the survivor math clearly and strongly favors your spouse getting the largest possible benefit, We'd run those numbers together and they might tell you a different story. But what I want you to understand is that the decision is not as simple as bigger check equals better outcome. And for most of the families I work with, people with substantial IRA balances that have saved in their 401k for decades, these are people who want to retire in their early 60s, people who are thinking about healthcare costs and tax brackets and legacies, where claiming at 62 is not a concession. It's a strategy. It's deliberate. It's intentional. Now that you've seen why retirees often change their mind once they understand how Social Security interacts with required minimum distribution, IRMA, ACA subsidies, tax bracket control, and even survivor benefits, and how claiming at 62 actually creates that flexibility that you don't get at 70, you can stop treating this as just simple math and start treating it as what it actually is. It's strategically choosing to lock in one variable that you can now control and optimizing your entire plan. So if you want help building your dream retirement, not just maximizing the Social Security piece, but optimizing the whole picture, what I want you to do is click on the link below, fill out a short survey, and I will send you over a personalized Loom video showing you exactly how early versus delayed claiming affects your specific situation.